Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live virtual tour of our dig in the Boyne Valley. My name is Ginny, and I'm a community archaeologist with DigVentures. DigVentures are a team of archaeologists on a mission to connect people who love archaeology with opportunities to get involved, whether that's online like today or in person. Currently, our team in Ireland is investigating a site nestled within a vast prehistoric landscape. Positioned on a hill overlooking Newgrange, we're investigating two areas with at least three ancient monuments. So features, finds, and fun vibes await. Today we're going to be learning more about the site, discovering what a causewayed enclosure is and why it's so important. And finally, we're going to take a virtual trip to site to see for ourselves. Plus, last but not least, we have a Q&A with Maya, who is joining us directly from the site itself. So I hope you're all ready. Let's get into it. To start us off, where are we? So the Boyne Valley near Dublin is one of the most famous prehistoric landscapes in the world, and it's official. Bruna Boyne is a renowned World Heritage Site, so it's incredibly important, and the research we're doing here is very important. We're on the edge and in the hinterland of this site. We're just on the other side of the river from some of Ireland's most outstanding Neolithic monuments, like Newgrange, Nath and Alf, which are surrounded by dozens of standing stones, passage tombs, and henges. In 2023, we teamed up with Dr. Stephen Davis of the University College Dublin School of Archaeology to begin the first archaeological research project to investigate these sites. We're using different techniques and approaches to unlock new knowledge and trying to find out what came before it. On the south side of the river was the subject of the largest geophysical survey in Ireland, which found a landscape of buried monuments no longer visible on the surface. So if you look at your screen now, you'll be able to see what that geophysical survey found. On the left, you can see our causewayed enclosures. We'll dig into those a bit deeper shortly. I'll tell you more about them. And on the right, you can see a ceremonial avenue there as well. Those dark blobs and shapes, those are the features just hiding beneath the surface. We know very little about these monuments, but we really want to find out more. So now we're undertaking keyhole excavations and LiDAR to field check the results of that survey and to answer key questions. All of this research is revealing entire prehistoric landscapes and helping to change the perspective from dots on a map to thinking more about how people actually moved around and interacted with these landscapes. Often, this sort of research is reserved for universities, but we've been incredibly lucky. We've got the opportunity to open this archaeology to our community. And so we've invited people from across the globe to take part in this ongoing research. And we've invited all of you to come along and watch as well. But before we get started, let's go over a little bit of context. Namely, what are we digging? We're investigating a possible causewayed enclosure, which, like I said before, it was spotted in the geophysics. But what are they? You can see a reconstruction there on the screen. Causewayed enclosures are thought to represent the earliest known enclosure of open space in European prehistory. They're made up of a circuit of interrupted ditches in a subcircular or oval shape, and they can be formed of up to 3 concentric circles of these ditches. There are only 3 known causewayed enclosures so far in Ireland versus 60 in the UK. The function of causewayed enclosures is still not certain, and the interpretation of these monuments hasn't really changed since the 1950s. There's an interpretation that was put forward by Stuart Piggott in the 1950s that said they were a sort of seasonal meeting place for scattered population. But other interpretations include that they were centres of trade, places of defence, burial, feasting, and ritual activity. So not unlike many other types of prehistoric sites and prehistoric monuments, the real function of these is up for heavy debate still today. The construction of causewayed enclosures has been dated to a period of 150 to 200 years between the late 38th to the mid 36th century BC. So this is a really important period. It's a period that we sort of think of as a Mesolithic Neolithic transition. which basically means people were shifting away from a nomadic, seasonal settlement sort of lifestyle with a reliance on hunting and gathering into a more settled lifestyle with a switch to farming for subsistence. So it's thought that these monuments originated in mainland Europe and they spread quickly throughout Western Europe and the British Isles. So it's an idea that arrives alongside that transition from the nomadic to the settled. These monuments are right at the cusp of that. So it's a really important period in history. Now for some examples. There are 3 known examples in Ireland. Unfortunately, we don't have images for them, but there's Lal's Hill, there's Donegal, both of those are in County Antrim, and there's Boyne in County Sligo as well. And now, of course, we can also add our site to this list as well, which is very exciting. There are more examples in the UK. Like I said, there are quite a few in Scotland, in Wales, 3 in Scotland, 2 in Wales, but most of these sites sit in the south of England. One of the big ones, of course, is Windmill Hill, which you can see on the top left of the screen there. That's part of a big prehistoric landscape around the village of Avebury, which includes an early prehistoric field system and 8 Bronze Age round barrows as well. We think that Windmill Hill was probably constructed around 3700 BC. And archaeological investigations that have taken place there have uncovered finds like arrowheads, axe heads, sickle blades, and scrapers, which are all flint tools from the Neolithic, but also numerous animal bones and skulls, as well as ceremonial chalk cups were found too. And most excitingly, a type of Neolithic pottery found on sites across Wessex was first identified at Windmill Hill. And so that has taken on the name Windmill Hill type pottery. But there are many other examples. Some of them have really great names as well, as you'll see. We've got a few on the screen there. Alongside Windmill Hill, we've got Whitehawk Camp, we've got Datchet, and we've got the Trundle up there. But there are some other fantastic sites, again, with brilliant names, such as Crickley Hill, Robin Hood's Ball, Knapp Hill, and in Abingdon as well. Like I hinted to when talking about Windmill Hill, the Neolithic doesn't mark the end of occupation and activity at these sites. Many seem to have been occupied at a later date as well. So some have been turned into Iron Age hill forts, such as Whitehawk Camp, and others, like I mentioned at Windmill Hill, have Bronze Age barrows on as well. So they're really interesting sites, a lot of prehistoric archaeology. But what do we find on these sites? There's sort of 3 main groups of finds that are very common. We have pottery and animal bone, which is not just evidence of feasting, but also evidence of the deliberate placement of animal bone and pottery. So it's feeding into that possible ritual function that these sites had. It's also quite common to find human remains, which again indicates some sort of ritual center. And last but not least, if you know your prehistoric archaeology, you won't be surprised to see that we find lots of flint on these sites as well. So that's things like knives, arrowheads, axes, scrapers. In the Neolithic period, these flints were used to create tools that would be useful for every day. So they're very, very common. And I'm sure we'll be seeing some for ourselves very soon. Speaking of, let's bring it back to our causewayed enclosure. So as I mentioned, we first dug there back in 2023, and this is a very cool image that I wanted to show you guys here. You can see our trench from last year overlaid on top of that geophysical survey that I showed you at the start. And you can see some of those ditches that are associated with the causeway enclosure and how it lines up just perfectly. You can see our findings were spot on there. And it's not such a different story this year. We're also finding it's lining up with the geophysics. But of course, it wouldn't be archaeology if there wasn't some fun surprises as well, which Maya will take us through later. So overall, no doubt that this site we're digging is an incredibly important site. That's why we've returned this year to recover more datable evidence to tell us the when, the why, and the how, and to fit the story of this monument into the wider story of the Boyne Valley's history. So without further ado, I think I've talked a lot about this site. Hopefully I've got you guys excited. Why don't we head over to site and take a bit of a closer look?
I am climbing up a really steep hill in the Boyne Valley. From the top, there are incredible views over one of the world's most important Neolithic landscapes. Behind me, you can see three of its most iconic ancient monuments, Newgrange, Knowth and Dowth. But it's the site in front of me that we're excavating at the moment that we're really interested in. This is the site of a Neolithic causewayed enclosure, a huge circular ancient monument that encloses this entire hilltop. It's a type of monument that only arrived in Ireland with the arrival of the Neolithic and farming, and this is one of only 3 that have been discovered over here so far. So anything that we find on this dig will be not only nationally significant to Ireland, but also to our understanding of Neolithic monuments around the world. So what are we finding and what are people up to? Let's go and take a look. Our first stop is at the sieving station with Nils, Abby and Kasia. Nils, can you tell us a little bit about what you're finding and why you're sieving?
Well, we're sieving to make sure we don't miss anything important. So we don't miss any flint or charcoal. We're taking note of everything we're finding, and well, that's why we're sieving. And we found some pretty exciting things, which I think you're going to be shown later.
Absolutely.
Mostly though, a lot of charcoal, a lot of quartz, and a lot of chert, a lot of evidence of people were here.
Lovely. And all those tiny little pieces of evidence are so important when we're looking at sites as old as this. Every piece of evidence counts. So keep up the good work and keep finding the good stuff. Thank you, Nils.
My best.
Let's carry on. So as we come round this side of the site, we head towards the trenches where we're investigating 2 enormous circular ditches. Over here, let's take a look at the next stop where Jacek is starting to dig into one of the ditches, and you can see this gorgeous dark brown fill. This is the bottom ditch, and as we head up the trench a little bit more, we come to the next ditch, which is currently being excavated by Coel.
Hello.
Hi Coel, how's it going?
Yeah, all right. Just trying to carry on down till we get to this sort of
Digging down, deeper and down. So let's take a look. You can see this beautiful dark grey charcoal rich fill. And as exciting as the ditch is, I think there's something else that you want to show us that you found a couple of days ago. Can you show us what you found?
I'd love to. So, found this beautiful piece of worked quartz, a worked quartz point. I'll just get that out and show you. It's very delicate, very special. Might have been part of an arrowhead or some kind of blade. And the fact that it's quartz is quite significant because we are finding flint here, so they did have flint for their tools, so the fact that they chose quartz suggests maybe it had a meaning beyond the practical, symbolic or personal to the person that made it. Very exciting.
It's a really beautiful find. When you hold it up to the light, it's almost translucent and you can see exactly where it's been worked, and tiny slivers have been chipped off to shape it into a point. It's a really beautiful find, so well done for spotting it.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Let's carry on up to the next part of the trench where things start to get even more intriguing and exciting. So over here, Christy has been digging what we thought was a big post hole. Christy, can you tell us a little bit about what you found over here and what you've been doing?
Well, it's hard to see now because we've excavated most of it. But down at the bottom of the pit, we came across an area of some intense charcoal, and you can even see kind of some of the is where you can see the wood, that was burnt so long ago, and really exciting. But we've now collected it all so that we can send it for radiocarbon dating, and that'll give us more of an idea of what time frame people were here. And then we're also mapping it. And I'm learning, so Nat is being very patient with me, but we're drawing in all the features, and this was that linear area of charcoal that we saw there as well. And you can ignore my little cartoons to entertain that. That's it. So it's really great and very exciting. I can't wait to get the dating data back.
Yeah, I mean, this is perfect kind of evidence that we're after, stuff that we can send off to the lab for radiocarbon dating, can give us a really solid date on when this was dug and when people were here, exactly as you say. And it was beautiful to watch you excavating it as well, because there's this really thick, dark layer of charcoal across the whole pit, and you excavated it absolutely immaculately. Beautiful work.
Just like surgery.
Yeah. It's good. The skills that people bring to the digs is fantastic, and yeah, it looks beautiful. So yeah, well done, and we'll carry on to the next part of the trench where things are getting even more exciting. I've said that several times now, but it's true, because come and have a look over here. So the reason that we dug this trench in this location is because we had some geophysical survey results that showed us exactly where there were two huge ditches forming the Neolithic causeways enclosure, one running across the top part of the trench and one running along the bottom part of the trench. But there was a little surprise in store for us, because the geophysics didn't reveal everything that we found. There was something of a surprise over in this corner, and let's go and take a look. So over in this corner, we found something we weren't expecting to find. Art, can you tell us a little bit about what you've been finding down here?
Layers upon layers. This didn't show up on the geophys. It was a mystery to start with. It was a gray blob flecked with bits of charcoal. The charcoal made us think that it was a feature, but there were very few finds coming up in here, so we weren't sure if this was occupation or if this were geologic. Kept digging and kept finding more flecks of charcoal, and then at very last, just today, we have started to show up bits of pottery, which is very exciting. We showed up a few bits of pottery in our sieve at first, and now we've come across what appear to be bits of pot in situ right here, laying on a stone. There's a bit of pot here, here, and there. And so right now we're very carefully going down and cleaning around it and preparing to record and extract.
Amazing. Can you show us a little bit about how you clean and reveal the pottery that you found in the ground?
So right now, just gently cleaning up around it with the trowel. We're pulling off this very clay material and scraping away a bit of this sandy material here. And then we will come back with these wood tools to approach the pot itself and very gently sort of scrape away so that we don't damage what is currently in the ground.
So you can see it emerging more and more from the ground. And Susie, I think you've got a couple of pieces that you found earlier.
No, these actually came detached from the from this little bit here.
Fantastic.
As we were up around.
Look at that. Can you show us so that we can have a good close-up look? Amazing. Look at that.
I think
beautiful stuff. Oh, they fit together as well. Look at that. Fantastic. And this, again, this is the kind of evidence that is so important, because it proves, as Art was saying, it proves that this feature is archaeology, not geology. It can also tell us about when it was dug, what people were doing here, and a pottery specialist can look at those fragments and they can tell us how old that pottery is and what even it might have been for. So that is really exciting, and I can't wait to see that being lifted out of the ground later, and we'll be able to take a much closer look and see if all of those pieces fit back together. So exciting stuff. But there's one last thing that I really want to show you. We're going to have to break the fourth wall to show you this, so I'll take the camera, Vanessa, and spin it around, and here we go. So show us what you've got.
In the last scoop of the bottom of the wheelbarrow, just when I thought I hadn't been doing a very good job of sifting, I spotted a prehistoric bead.
Look at that, and it's so tiny. We think it's made of stone. What else can you tell us about it?
It just looked like a button, but it's got a very carefully worked hole in the centre.
Take one more look at that. How can we resist? absolutely stunning. So much is starting to happen today on site, and can't wait to share more of it with you. And back to you guys in the studio.
That is just fantastic to get a glimpse into site. So I hope you all enjoyed that quick look into site, but it's not over yet, because joining us directly live from site is the star of the show herself. It's Maya. Hi, Maya.
Hi, hello.
How are you doing?
Really good. The sun has sort of just come out a little bit, and it's all looking gorgeous from here. In fact, I mean, I know I mentioned the view earlier, but I'm now standing on top of the hill that I was at the bottom of earlier. And actually, if you look over there, you can just about see Newgrange just there in the background, that white wall with the turf domed roof on top of it, and it's absolutely stunning, especially when the sunlight strikes it. And behind me you can see our site tent where we keep all the cookies.
Fantastic. Two very important things there in the background. So before we jump into our Q&A, I've got a few questions myself for you, Maya, based on the tour that we just saw. I think I'm going to start off, I'll go in sort of chronological order, with that quartz flake that we saw at the start there. I mean, that's pretty incredible. As far as finds go, that's pretty stunning. It made me wonder a bit about the geology of the site. Is the stone local to the area? What is the geology on site? Do we know? Oh dear, we've lost Maya for a second. Unfortunately, despite being on top of a hill, the signal can be a little bit mixed, so we'll give her a second to come back. But in the meantime, as we've said in the chat, if anyone has any questions that you've thought up throughout the tour that you'd like to ask Maya, do feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll pose them to her shortly when she returns to us. But I think it's pretty incredible to see that site. I'm especially jealous of the view. It looks amazing. And I think having that prehistoric landscape spanning out behind you while you dig must be incredible. But here she is. Maya is back with us. So Maya, could you maybe tell us a bit about the geology of the site?
Hi. So I've got the lovely little quartz flake right here that Ginny was asking about. It's beautiful, and as I say, when you hold it up to the light, it's almost translucent. And in fact, the geology here is really interesting. That's a very good question. So Neolithic archaeology is difficult enough, but we're actually on a really complicated geological underpinning. So we've got a landscape that has been formed by lots and lots of glacial movement. So we've got shale coming through, we've got lots of glacial deposits, and actually what we're digging through and what the archaeology is dug into is really complicated, and it's very difficult to unpick the features from the geology. So it's certainly proving us all with a challenge. But what's really interesting is that flint is really not natural to this area. It doesn't occur in this area very much. The closest place you can get it from is by going down to the beach, where you can pick up flint cobbles that have been...
Oh dear, Maya will be back for sure.
To the other island. To get flint, you have to travel to the other end of the island of Ireland. It's a really difficult commodity.
Apologies for this. Maya should be back with us shortly. Unfortunately, the downside of archaeology is you are in the middle of nowhere usually, so the signal can be very temperamental. Hopefully she'll return to us in a moment. Don't forget, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and Maya should be able to answer them shortly as well. Although many of you, I think, have returned to site, so it's good to see you coming back. Here she is. She's back again.
Hi, I'm back. Hopefully you can hear me now. Where did we get up to?
We got up to, you have to go down to the beach to pick up these pieces of quartz.
Yeah, so the closest place that you can get flint is from the beach, and you can get flint pebbles. If you want to get bigger chunks of flint, you have to travel to the other end of Ireland and bring it in. So we know any flint that's being found on site is being brought in intentionally. Quartz is a little bit more tricky. You do find it about, but it's not great, to be honest, for making tools. So when we know that people are selecting it to make tools, they're probably doing it for aesthetic or symbolic reasons rather than because it's a really good material to make tools out of. But you can see that if someone has picked something out like this, you know, it would have stood out. It would have been something really, really special. So finding something like this is highly significant. You know, worked quartz is rare. It's really, really rare to find. On other sites from this period, they make up about 1% of the stone tool assemblage. So the fact that we found we found a piece alone is really special.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty incredible find. And it's not the only sort of uncommon find that seems to be coming up. Obviously, we saw that lovely pottery as well, which isn't particularly common on prehistoric sites. Have we found any on our digs here before? Is there any design on it? How is it made? Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about the pottery that's coming up here?
So the pottery that's coming out actually is surprisingly well made. It's very smooth. And the fabric of it has quite fine inclusions in it. It's a nice reddish colour. It's quite thin. It's not the usual thick, chunky pottery that you might associate with the Neolithic, which is maybe leading us to think that perhaps it's early Bronze Age instead. And because it came out of that surprise feature, it could be telling us, like you were saying, Ginny, Neolithic monuments were built, but they continued to be used into the Bronze Age. So people were reusing the monument for something else. But we'll have to wait until we send it to a specialist to have a look at. But you can see it is quite fine. It's a really nice colour. And they're starting actually to lift bits of it out of the ground. And the latest piece that has come out is actually part of the neck or the base. You can see part of the shape. And it's really, really lovely. As far as we can see, it's not got any decoration on it, but we've only found small. This type of pottery is decorated. It might have impressions made either with leaves or with tools or even with thumbs or little etchings in it. But yeah, we're really looking forward to cleaning these up and taking a closer look. In fact, in a little bit, after we've shown you some of the other finds, we can probably head back down to site and take.
Apologies again. Maya should be back with us in a moment. For anyone who missed that, I think what Maya was saying is I believe they are lifting some pottery right now, like live on site. So I think our plan is once we've had a look at some of these finds, we're going to take you down so you can see that pottery coming out of the ground live. Here she is. She's back with us. Here you are.
Hi.
I was just saying you're
you
lifting some pottery, aren't you? Yes, we can hear you. So we can go down and take a look.
I'm going to walk back down the hill and hopefully the signal will hold out just long enough for me to be able to show you where we're up to with the pottery. I can see some photographs are being taken at the moment, so that must mean we've got to a really good point in the process. I'll turn the camera around now. Here we go. Look at this. How beautiful is that? So Art has fully cleaned it up. It's looking absolutely beautiful. And that is now taking record photos so that we can start to lift it. Let me just come through and we will take a really close-up look. And
don't walk on this, it's clean.
As if.
No.
Here we go. Look at that. How beautiful. What a beautiful excavation job has been done there. And you can actually see the neck of the pot in the ground and part of the body and how the pieces have been broken and left in the ground. How do you feel about it, Art?
Really pleased.
I think that's putting it mildly. It's beautiful.
Yeah, they say it look good.
One last look. There we go.
Fantastic. That's a brilliant job from Art there. It's really exciting to see that sort of coming out of the ground live. It really makes me feel like I'm on site. I don't know about you guys in the chat, but it makes me very jealous. But last but not least, before I move on to our Q&A, the last thing that I wanted to ask about Maya was the bead, the beautiful bead that came out today. I think everyone's probably checking everything now because Vanessa is so eagle-eyed to spot that. It's a really beautiful find, but could you maybe tell us a bit more? What was it used for? Was it worn or?
It's a really good question, and we don't often really maybe think about the Neolithic as a time maybe when people were wearing really decorative items, but actually these beads they were used to make necklaces, and even in some places they found them shaped into headdresses as well. So whether this one bead is part of a bigger necklace or headpiece, well, I'm certainly using my imagination and hoping that it is, and we're all hoping that we might find more of them, but so far just one. But yeah, they would certainly have been part of something decorative. I will just get it out again because it's so cute. Look how tiny it is. But they would have had necklaces and headdresses made up of thousands of them, each one handmade with a hole drilled through the center and strung onto a necklace or headdress that someone would have worn around 5,000 years ago. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful.
It really is. It's so stunning. And again, just such a fantastic spot from Vanessa there. Well done, her. But yeah, without further ado, I think it's time to move on to the Q&A. So if anyone does have any questions for Maya, do drop them in the chat. I've seen we had one already come through from Jenny, who has asked, are there any expectations with the site before we finish this year?
It's so hard to say because archaeology is full of surprises. I mean, we showed you in that one corner where Art was digging and has found the pottery. We absolutely weren't expecting that. I mean, that came as a total surprise. The feature itself was a surprise, let alone the fact there was part of a broken pot lying right at the bottom of it. So do we have any expectations? Only that there's probably going to be a few more surprises. We've got another 2 full days of digging. Our goal is to try and get down to the bottom of one of the ditches so that we can recover datable evidence that can tell us when they were first dug. And the site that we've just looked at is only one of the 2 sites that we're excavating. There is a whole other story to tell about what's been happening on the other hill where we're investigating a ritual passageway or ceremonial avenue made out of timber posts and a possible kist. But you know, there's so much to share from this site and that we might find out in the next 2 days. We thought those parts of the sites, they need a whole video unto themselves. So watch this space. We will record something for you from the other part of the site so that we can share our progress from there as well.
Absolutely, yes. Does anyone else have any questions for Maya or anything you'd like to ask? I'll ask you another one, Maya. When do we wrap up this dig? When are we saying goodbye?
Oh, we've got Saturday and Sunday left. So Sunday is the last day of digging and recording. So we've got 2 days left. But the evidence that we've collected from site so far is so immense and so incredible that we are certain that we will be back again next year. And the discoveries that we make over the next 2 days will inform what we come back to do and where we will dig next year. So we're really, really looking forward to being back and to continuing to find out more about these enormous monuments.
Absolutely, yes. And while you were speaking there, we've had a question from David, which is actually a very good one. David has asked, do you think all the rain you've had has sped along the dig?
The rain has certainly helped, yes. It goes in both directions. We had one day where we were rained off and couldn't dig at all, so we went to the pub with some of the flints and we looked through our finds and sorted them into flint that had been worked and not worked. But the benefit of the rain the next day was that it softened the ground and made everything much easier to dig and brought out the different colours of the soil. So yes, rain does definitely have a benefit and help speed things up once we get back onto site.
Yes, and I know, where else can you find archaeologists if they're not on site but in the pub? Fantastic. We have another question that's come through here. Why is the feature that art is digging? Why did that not show up on the geophysics?
That's a really good question, and probably only one that a qualified geophysicist is fully placed to answer. But basically, it just means that the soil that is in the ditch is not different enough to the soil that is around it, to the natural, to give us a signal that we can pick up with the geophysical surveys. It's just to do with the geology and what it's made of and the differentiations in the soil. So that is why it's always really, really important not to just rely on the geophysics, but to go and field check as well, because there's going to be more in the ground than a single survey can pick up. There's going to be things that only archaeologists with our eyes and our sense of touch can pick up, the differences in those soils.
It's always nice to get a surprise when you're digging on a new site as well. I'll ask another question just in case if anyone else does have one. Well, we are coming to the end of time, so don't be shy. But I just had a thought, a really important one. For anyone who's watching who isn't already a crowdfunder or a subscriber, how might they get involved next year?
Very good question. So we'll be making our plans over the dig over the next few months as we start to analyse the remains, and we'll be launching all of next year's digs on the 1st of December for people to join in and get involved. The easiest way to find out more about that is obviously to go to our website and have a look at our What's On page and keep an eye on that. You can also sign up to our email and get an alert as soon as our digs for 2025 are available for you to join.
Perfect. So there you go. If anyone watching hasn't been involved already and wants to get involved, that's how you do it. But it doesn't look like we have any more questions, and we're coming up towards the end of our time now. So I think, Maya, do you want to give us one more spin of sight before we say goodbye to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will turn the... One moment, and here we go. Heading back down the hill this time, much easier than up the hill. We'll go past the site one more time. It is a beautiful view from up here. I can't emphasize it enough. I mean, even if we weren't digging up here, I would just like to sit here and contemplate the entire landscape. It is a beautiful thing. So here we go. We've now got the pottery being photographed. Look at that. We're going to be making a 3D model so that you'll all be able to see it online and explore it for yourself. And then over here, progress is happening really rapidly this afternoon, where we are excavating the ditches. It's looking really good. And over here, we're back to the sieves with our star finds. This is Vanessa, and this is her sieve, where the beautiful stone bead came out of. I think if this was your office for the day, wouldn't you be content with that?
This is a terrible view for my day at work.
The commute is dreadful, isn't it?
It's really easy going home at the end of the day down here.
Yeah. Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Here we go. And I think on that note, we'll leave you all with a beautiful view of Newgrange over there, right ahead of us, just there in the distance. We couldn't be enjoying ourselves more.
That's so great to hear. Thank you so much, Maya. We'll let you go now, and we'll head over to our outro. Thank you so much for joining us. So I hope you've enjoyed that quick look at site. It was really great to see everyone and to see Maya and to see the team working as well. It's really exciting every time to witness all the live happenings on site. Like we said, if you'd like to get involved, please don't forget to head to our website where you can become a crowdfunder if you fancy supporting a specific dig next year, or you can become a subscriber and support us in everything that we do. On that note, thank you very much to all of the crowdfunders and subscribers that have made all of this possible. And of course, as always, don't forget to follow us on social media if you'd like to see other updates. And if this has really tickled your fancy, if you're really enjoying seeing those beads and the flint and all the other finds that are coming out, don't forget we have a brand new online course that you can dive into, the Introduction to Archaeological Finds, where you can find out more about what happens when we uncover something on site, what happens to it after, and all the different types of finds that you can expect to see on your typical archaeological dig as well. But without further ado, thank you so much to everyone who has joined me live, and for everyone who's watching the recording, I hope you've enjoyed. My name is Ginny, and we'll see you next time from another site. Goodbye, everyone.